It seems there is another study that has appeared that indicates that there is no short term mortality signal after COVID-19 vaccination in older adults. And this is a trial site news presentation, and it's asking a question that we all have been muttering in our minds about. If the vaccinated are protected and the unvaccinated aren't dying, why is excess mortality still elevated above 2015 to 2019? Somebody must be dying. The question is who? And this is where I'm going to take a different angle to try and help you to understand that there is a signal here that I think is being missed. And this signal I identified since 2022. And when I did a recent detailed analysis looking at hospital admissions and illness patterns, it was very clear that something is very wrong. The question is, what? And in this analysis, I brought back my initial view in 2022 as to who I thought was most being affected in the pandemic and what could be driving this excess mortality signal that is not really being picked up. The unvaccinated can look around them and see that largely they are not getting severe COVID, and so therefore their baseline mortality will be what it always was. Doesn't mean they don't die, but at about the standard rate. The vaccinated, from all the studies, indicate that they seem to be fine. In fact, when you look carefully, they seem to be extra protected. Now, when you look at the study here, and this is quite remarkable, this is, as I said, a modified self-control case series on mortality risk. They were looking at Medicare beneficiaries aged 65 years and older, and this was just published. And the highlights that they have is that the mortality risk after COVID primary series, now this is important, primary series doses in US Medicare adults, that's the cohort. They looked at their mortality over time. They looked at the first 28 days post-vaccination. This in itself is another problem. And this is the bit. Relative incidences of all mortality outcomes were significantly less than 1. And this less than 1 is a very important concept because 1 means that it's at baseline. Less than 1 means they are protected. And when you actually look carefully at the results here, we're talking about 0.63, 0.67 protection. That makes no sense. So just in case you have any questions, the first point is that you can't tell me that you vaccinate a cohort against COVID and they are protected from other causes of mortality, car accidents, falling out of trees, suicide. That makes no sense. And so what it means is that invariably the baseline is flawed. I don't think that that baseline should or could be below 1. It should be at best exactly at the baseline where they are protected from COVID mortality, but nothing else really. If you told me anything else, you'd have to tell me the mechanism. So we realize that there is a skewing in the data, but there still seems to be a large cohort of those who are vaccinated that are not having any problems. And you will have met them, seen them, talked to them. They tell you, I haven't had any issues. And they are also right. So where exactly is the problem? Now, this is very important information. I shared this a few years ago, and I didn't get much attention. And I think that I'm going to have to do it again because I think the data is so important. As I said, I had looked at a stable period after October 2021 to May of 2022, where they had given out the Office of National Statistics data about vaccination status and mortality. And at the time, I had to sit down and do Excel charts to plot it. But now with the power of AI, I was able to put all the data back in, and I was right then. So it has produced these beautiful images that show some very important details. So I've started off here with the age group 70 to 79. And this is where we have to understand what's going on. In red is unvaccinated. In orange is the first dose. That means they had one dose and they are beyond 21 days. Second dose beyond 21 days. And the third booster dose beyond 21 days. The reason why this one here is very important to me, because I picked a stable period, because why would someone only have one dose when they need two? It doesn't make sense. Meaning that if you actually had to go and get vaccinated and you went to a center, you got the first dose, you know you need to get the second dose within 3 or 4 weeks, why would you bother to take the first dose and just not bother to go back for the second? Something didn't make sense. So this is part of the reason why I delayed the time frame from the original rollout. I looked at the period of time where the first dose more than 21 days would have been people who were clearly way beyond the time that they should have gone back to get vaccinated. That group who had only one dose, when I thought about it, this is my thinking, they would either have died if they were old enough, or they had an adverse effect. There may have been a few of them that couldn't be bothered, or they had the first dose and maybe they, like they just couldn't be bothered. But that, I think, would be the minority. And so when you think about that, what did the outcome show in that stable period? And so this now is what it looks like here. And essentially, as I said, the unvaccinated here is what I consider the baseline. And you'll notice that the third dose, greater than 21 days, is lower than unvaccinated. Now, as I said, this is for non-COVID mortality. So I think this is just what I call the healthy vaccinee effect, because you don't have extra protection from being vaccinated. But notice carefully that these two are coming together, and in effect, down the line, beyond this, they would cross if left alone. But look carefully at the green and the orange. The orange is the first dose. The green is the second dose greater than 21 days. And you can now suddenly see that the age standardized mortality rate is way higher in this group, these two groups. Now, what I think is happening, so when we look at the studies include this group, but they don't include this group. This group, because they're not fully vaccinated, would not have been included. But this cohort, in my view, represent potentially the drivers of excess mortality. And the point I had been making that I was trying to raise in a public health question is that I was saying that, listen, whatever your perception may be about the safety of the vaccine, you should be interested in people who had adverse effects. And it's very likely that the people who had adverse effects would only take one dose. They would have had what I call a hyperimmune response. And if you ask around the people, they will tell you, did you only have one dose? Yes. Why? Why did you only have the one dose? Well, when I got that dose, I just felt so unwell. I thought I'm not going to take any more. That may have happened for some people after 2 doses. The point being, we were told at the time, and this is, when history looks back at this, people were told that if you feel unwell, it's a good sign because it means the vaccine is working. What are they talking about? That's an adverse effect. You don't want people to feel unwell after they've been vaccinated. It probably means that they had too strong an immune response, if anything, and that comes with longer term risk. So you may argue that this is in the cohort who are age 70 to 79. I'm going to show you now where the real problem is with regards to this. Now, remember the breakdown in terms of the colors: red, unvaccinated; blue, third dose; orange is the first dose only, single dose; and green is 2 doses. When we look at this again, and this is a different cohort now, and so you have to see here age 18 to 39. Again, the stable period, October 2021 to May of 2022. Unvaccinated, first dose; second dose; third dose greater than 21 days. When you look therefore at this, this is your unvaccinated line. And what you can see, remember, these are the young cohorts. So they are not dying usually, unlike with the older cohorts where some people would have died because of other things. You don't really expect this group to be dying other than a car accident or maybe suicide or a drug overdose. But what it shows you that the only benefit, it seemed, was in the period 1, 2, 3 months here for people who had 2 doses. Beyond that, every cohort seems to be above the unvaccinated for non-COVID. That means that they didn't die of COVID, they died of anything else. This cohort here, again, is the highest. So this is where we come into a very important understanding about why we're seeing a strange pattern where they keep on telling us that the vaccinated are fine. Everybody knows the unvaccinated now are fine. They were at risk early in the pandemic, depending on their comorbidities. But once they had been exposed, they got natural immunity. If they survived that, then beyond that, they would be largely fine. So who is dying? Where is the excess mortality coming from? So this is now where I am putting the data together. And I'll be doing this month on month because there is so much data to go through, so many signals that indicate something is wrong. My feeling is that what public health should be doing is that they should now be trying to match adverse events, so people who had adverse responses, whether after the first or the second dose, and match it to what is happening in terms of their longer term outcomes, hospital, doctor, disease. Because if this cohort is at higher risk, should you not want to know? Forget about the ideology. I mean, forget about, oh goodness, I have to defend this, I have to. If you are genuinely interested in patient health and you are genuinely seeking to find ways to protect the population, should you not be interested in trying to figure out if people who had 1 dose are at higher risk for complications than other cohorts? It's a simple question. And what I'm realizing is that it seems that the scientific community has to be challenged to do the right thing. It's easier to criticize people who are asking questions and say that they are just trying to create misinformation or they're anti-vax or some other random thought. You have to either be interested in the health of people or you are not. I don't think that there is a middle ground. And at the end of the day, I am highlighting here, just in case anybody is watching who is in a position of responsibility, you should look in your country and find out if, based on mortality patterns and morbidity, that's illness, you are seeing worse outcomes in people who only had 1 dose. Could this cohort be driving the excess mortality? If they are, and you leave them alone and you don't care, the outcomes across the population will continue to deteriorate. And guess what? Whatever is causing this for them will eventually hit this cohort and this cohort. It's just in different timelines. I don't think there's any way out of this. I think that there was a hope that some of these questions would naturally fall away. They're not. They're not going anywhere. People are still sick. And when I've looked at the hospital statistics, it is horrific in terms of the trajectory of some diseases. This is not going away, and the answers need to come. People need to stop defending the ideology. And maybe I have to ask the cohorts who are unvaccinated, who are still angry, that maybe you need to step back a little, give them some space to breathe. You know, it's kind of like what I say to when I'm talking to somebody who is smoking. I'll tell you what happens. This is the reality. If I am trying to counsel someone who is smoking or drinking too much, after having the discussion with them, I then say to their partner, for the next month, you are not allowed to say a word about this. Don't say anything. Don't say, I told you so. Don't say anything. Just leave them, let them reflect on it. In the same way, this kind of data, if you show anybody, or if you make them watch this video, don't say anything. Don't say, I told you so. Don't get them defensive. Just let them look at the data. And the question is simple. Could we be missing that there is a cohort who has had adverse events that are struggling, that are putting pressure on the hospital system, and should be understood better? That's essentially all the question is. Tell them that the blue line is great, but just let them concentrate on this one. What's happening with them, and is this the problem that we are facing? And then step away. Don't say, I told you so. Don't say anything else, because we are now seeing that part of the reason why you are having this disconnect between what the population is looking at and what the science is looking at. If they pick the wrong cohorts to do the studies on, they won't see any signals. But if you look carefully, and if you know where to look, then all the signals are there. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. But at this point, 5, 6 years down the line, it's unacceptable that the answers are not clear. Just keep asking the questions. Show them the video. Let them reflect on it. Walk away. Don't say anything for a month. See what happens. Have a great evening. I'll continue to bring you breaking information, and critically, look out in the next few weeks. The rising heart crisis, why cardiovascular disease is surging. And if you're struggling with gut issues, please make sure you do something about it. Join the cohort that is in the description below. We're finding solutions for everyone. Have a great evening.